Semenya will have to rethink her career after losing her challenge against the IAAF. The Court of Arbitration for Sport issued its ruling just a little earlier. That ruling means officials can implement new rules on testosterone levels. Let's take you live now to our European correspondent in Brussels, Kevin Ozebek. Kevin, you're not in Switzerland, but give us a sense of the response by the European media to this decision.
Yeah, so we are still right now poring over all of the documents being released by that Court of Sport, and we do have this media release for them, and we now have some more information in terms of what the panel was thinking and how they reached their decision to dismiss this case. The document says that there is no dispute that the panel found there should be a separate classification for female athletes. Essentially, there should be a divide between female athletes as well as male athletes, and this panel on the Court of Arbitration for Sport also found that based on the evidence presented to them during this hearing by both of the parties, they believe that such discrimination is necessary, reasonable, and a proportionate means of achieving the aim of preserving the integrity of female athletics. So what the Court of Arbitration is saying is that having some regulations for differences of sex development, so people who necessarily don't develop along standard gender lines, there should be some procedures, some sort of things that they have to do to make sure there's still going to be that binary track between male and female athletes. But I think one thing that's really important, really crucial to note here, this panel at the arbitration court also found that there could be potential issues with having this protocol down the road, and they lay out what some of those instances and what some of the problems could be down the road, and they say it's very crucial that this is a living document, so open to change down the road. And from now on, the governing body over track and field also has to be open to the fact that there could be side effects of hormonal treatment experienced by the athletes, which could then potentially make them have to revisit this down the road. So the Court of Arbitration has made a ruling, but also in this ruling they have said that this should be a living document and potentially evolve as more information becomes available.
Kevin, does the document say anything about the IAAF discriminating in terms of which sporting codes this regulation around testosterone levels should apply to?
Well, this does all only apply to certain specific races, ones that Castro was actually competing in. So that is the 400 meters up until the 1 mile. Now, we know more recently in South Africa, she's been competing in races much longer than that. So she does have a choice here. If she wants to continue to do anything between the 400 meter to the 1 mile, she will have to lower her testosterone levels for 6 months prior to competition and then maintain those lower testosterone levels. But if she wants to do only races longer than a mile, she could just stay as is, status quo, and not change her hormone levels at all, because this dismissal only does apply to what the governing body of track and field wanted and what they asked for, and that's only to have these new regulations applied to that specific field of track and field events.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if they have the inclination to get involved, but do you think that the European Parliament might have any jurisdiction, any inclination to get involved in a matter like this?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if we will be getting reaction from the EU institutions on all of this. Of course, Castro is such a hero down in South Africa, but this is also a case that Europe and the rest of the world is very closely watching because of the precedent that this will likely set. Because of it being Labor Day here in Brussels, the EU institutions are closed. The European Parliament right now is not in session. They all have the holiday. They've also ended their legislative session for the year because at the end of this month, there's going to be EU elections. So we may not get reaction from the EU institutions anytime soon, but when the new EU Parliament convenes in just a little over a month, it's very likely that there is something here in this that the Parliament will be looking at, examining closely, and either applauding or criticizing quite heavily. So, like I said, this definitely was a case getting so much attention here in Europe because of the precedent this is going to set.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks very much giving us that context from Europe. Our European correspondent is in Brussels. That's Kevin Ozebek. Very interestingly, he says that the Court of Arbitration for Sport has clarified that that decision is a living document.